here's Gain the Lead with your host, Tyler Redeker.
Welcome to episode 7 live of Gained the Lead. Glad to have you with us. Good time to go live because Ohio State just wrapped up a championship berth, I believe. Good for them. This game had a lot of intrigue and drama until 3 minutes ago. A sack, strip, fumble, all the way to the house from Sawyer. So, good for him. A little bit of redemption after what happened in the Michigan game when when he picked off Michigan in the end zone thinking that it would lead Ohio State to the victory and they didn't win. That sucks. So a little bit of redemption there for Sawyer. Ohio State is the better team and should have won this game. So no qualms from me. That's a pretty heartbreaking way to lose when you have a 4th and goal and to tie the game with 2.5 minutes left, and not anymore. So Ohio State's going to move on to the national championship to play Notre Dame, and we'll cover that a little bit here shortly. But good for the Big Ten, good for Ohio State. It's a pretty good recovery from Ohio State after that loss to Michigan. I didn't see Ohio State having a whole hell of a lot of fight in them after they lost to Michigan. So cool to see them kind of come back from the dead, so to speak, and make the championship. But let's talk a little bit about the game last night. So last night we saw the other semifinal, which had Penn State and Notre Dame facing off, and that was, let me tell you, that was a great football game. If you didn't watch, you did miss out on that one. A couple teams that were very evenly matched, and I think they did. Both teams played well in parts of that game. Neither team put together a complete game. In the first half, it really looked like Penn State was going to just pull away and make Notre Dame look like the independent school that they are and like they did not belong with the Big Ten. Their guys were getting pushed around on the line of scrimmage. It was kind of ugly. The score didn't really reflect how lopsided the first half looked. But credit to Notre Dame, they put a field goal up right before the half to make it 10-3, and then they came out at after halftime with a much different game plan that worked. They just decided, hey, we actually can play with these guys. We're as big as them, if not bigger, and we have the talent. And Notre Dame, took the reins really from Penn State in the third quarter. Credit to Penn State, they did answer. They kept the game close through the fourth, and if you were watching the game live, you did think that game was going to go to overtime. That had every making of an overtime game, and Penn State's got the ball with under a minute left, and all they need to do is run the clock out, and they'll go to overtime. And for some reason, Drew Aller, their Penn State's quarterback, decided to try to play hero ball and go win the game, even though it was already tied. And he threw a pick with like 30 seconds left. And Notre Dame got the ball in Penn State territory on like the 40-ish. And all they had to do was run the ball a few times, gain about 10 or 15 yards, and kick a game-winning field goal, which is what they did. So credit to Notre Dame. Penn State definitely blew that game, but credit to Notre Dame for being in the game so that when Penn State did blow it, they were ready to go and win it. So you'll see Notre Dame, and all signs point to Ohio State in the national championship game on January, I believe, 20th. So maybe the 21st. I think it's the 20th. That's the Monday. So I think it'll be a pretty good matchup. Notre Dame's been playing really, really good football ever since they lost to Northern Illinois in the second game of the year. And by the way, there are no bigger Notre Dame fans outside of Notre Dame than Northern Illinois this playoffs. I mean, if Notre Dame wins the national championship, Northern Illinois can basically rest on the fact that they beat the national champion this year. They were the only team to do it at that. So that'd be cool for them especially. But I don't see Notre Dame being able to stick with Ohio State. Maybe those are famous last words. I haven't been super accurate in my picks so far in this college football playoff, so take that for what it is. But I mean, Ohio State has been playing insane football in the last 3 games now. They were a little bit closer with Texas than I thought they should be, but they obviously made it through it. And I think I don't know if Notre Dame is the caliber team that Texas is, or that even Oregon was, and Ohio State made Oregon look silly. So I guess prove me wrong, Notre Dame, but my guess is that spread will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 points by the time the game starts. It may start in the 3.5 to 4 range, but I think a lot of money is coming in on Ohio State for that game. So we'll see what happens as we get closer to that in a week and a half. But college football, the playoff has been, outside of a couple of blowout games in the first round, it's been pretty entertaining. I got to give credit to the playoff committee. I know that is not a popular thing to do right now. A lot of college football fans wanted to crap all over the college football playoff committee for picking the teams that they did to put into the playoff, but ultimately it's been great for viewership. It's put some decent matchups up there. The problem, and I use the word problem lightly because I don't think it's actually a problem, but the difference with college football in this tournament versus college basketball is the parity is not nearly what it is in basketball. You're just not going to see a small team like George Mason in 2005 or a Butler in 2010, 2011. Those type schools are never, ever, ever going to be able to string together multiple wins in the college football playoff. It's not going to happen. They may knock off one team and one upset in the first round, and then they'll meet another team that is far and above their skill level, their size, the ability that they have, as far as being coached and the game plan. Basketball is, and that's why the NCAA basketball tournament is the spectacle that it is because that tournament has so much parity. It has so much uncertainty that even the greatest teams of all time have to go in and win 6 games in a row in environments that a lot of players have not played in before. And that's what makes it so exciting. I mean, even that Kentucky team back in, what was that? The Anthony Davis team with the Harrison twins and um, oh, I'm forgetting his name now. But um, anyway, that Kentucky team that went undefeated through the regular season with Calipari, that team was one of the greatest teams of all time in college basketball. And yet they lost, I believe, in the Final Four. It may have been in the Elite Eight to Wisconsin, who, I mean, yeah, good team, I guess. I think it was Frank Kaminsky's season. But I mean, that those kinds of losses can happen in college basketball on any given night because college basketball is kind of a hot, cold, streaky game. Whereas football is just a smash mouth, run it down your throat. We're bigger than you, stronger than you, better than you, and we know it type game. So no matter how much you strategize, football is not what what basketball is in college. So these these tournaments are very different from each other, but that doesn't mean that the college football tournament playoff can't be great in its own way. And I think it's gotten off to a really really good start in its inaugural 12 team season. I think the national championship game will be pretty good. So Ohio State does wrap it up 28-14 final to move on to the national championship game. So congratulations to Ohio State. Turns out the Big Ten puts a team in the national title and the SEC doesn't. So not saying, I'm just saying. So yeah, we'll visit a little bit of a preview of the national championship game next week at some point, as a little bit more info comes out. But we do know it's Ohio State and Notre Dame, so I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a tight game, but I do think Ohio State is going to win just based on their strength of schedule this season and the size of guys and the talent they have on their own team. Notre Dame's good, but I don't see them hanging with Ohio State in a way that they can win that game. I might be wrong. Let's switch gears a little bit. We've got NFL Super Wild Card Weekend, which the NFL doesn't want me to call it anymore. I don't know. I guess they called it Super Wildcard Weekend for the last 4 years just to signify the difference that when they added another team and now they've taken the Super out of it. So now it's just back to NFL Wildcard Weekend. But we've got some games this weekend, so we'll go ahead and preview some of those, talk a little bit about what to look for in those games. I think the NFL playoffs are one of the best playoffs of any sport in existence. Football is, I mean, we obviously just talked about in college and the discrepancy of the talent and size in the college game, and that exists, right? That's just reality. But the NFL is so much more evenly matched in a level playing field because you've got the salary caps, you've got contracts, you've got franchise tags, you've got all these things put in place, competitive what is it, CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, that's what I'm looking for. But the Players Association and the league and these entities come together to create an excellent game that is evenly matched. Obviously every year has great teams, good teams, bad teams, but pretty consistently you've got turnover of which teams make the playoffs, which teams don't. It's very cyclical in the NFL, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Obviously you have a couple teams that have been good for the last decade. Kansas City Chiefs. I'm looking at you, Philadelphia Eagles. You guys have been pretty good for a number of years now. The Packers have been really, really good for a long time, back into Brett Favre era, save a couple seasons. But in general, teams that you don't always perennially see in the playoffs are making the playoffs every year, and that is cyclical, and I like that about the NFL. So tomorrow we've got a couple games starting at 4:30. The first playoff game is the Chargers and the Texans in Houston. That's the AFC wild card, the 5 seed against the 4 seed against the 5 seed. That line favors LA by 3 points, and the over under is a measly low 41.5. I think that over under line is a result of these two teams having very good defenses and somewhat mediocre offenses without serious weapons. LA has had a top 10 defense all year. Houston has struggled with top 10 defenses this year. Some cases getting blown out, some cases close losses, but they have not beat a top 10 defense this year. So I see LA winning this game. I don't know if they'll cover all 3 points. It's going to be a low scoring game. I see something like a 17-14, a 20-17, 21-20, something like that. But Houston has also lost some of their main weapons on offense, which has created some problems for them over the last several weeks on offense. They're not scoring the points that they did earlier this season. Stephon Diggs tore his ACL back in week 4 or 5. He was one of their top 2 receivers. And then Tank Dell, who was their number 3 receiver, but moved into 2 behind Diggs when he went out. Tank Dell had a gruesome knee injury a couple weeks ago. Just basically shredded every ligament in his knee and dislocated his kneecap. So he's out for probably close to 12 months, if not more, to rehab that knee. And that leaves Houston really with C.J. Stroud, who's been not as good this year as he was his rookie year. You've got Joe Mixon in the backfield, who's been good this season, but he has been not as good without the threat of other weapons over the last several weeks. And then Nico Collins is really the only wide receiver to speak of for Houston. On the other side of the football, though, Los Angeles doesn't have any receivers really either. I mean, you've got Ladd McConkey, who is one of the best, better rookie wide receivers in the league this year. But past that, Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, who these guys are, injury fill-ins, basically. I mean, they aren't anything special. Johnston had a ceiling as high as anybody and has proven that he doesn't have the talent, the chutzpah to be in this league as a reliable target. So unfortunately for the Chargers, they've got to find a wide receiver in the offseason to go alongside Ladd McConkey, who has proven himself to be a good pick. But yeah, I think that'll be a close game, but it's two teams who don't excite me all that much. It's a good first game of the playoffs to get your beak wet. Again, I think the Chargers will take that one in Houston. The next game of the day is Pittsburgh and Baltimore, which will be the third time these teams have played this season. The last time they played was only a couple weeks ago. I think week 17. No, I think week 16. And I mentioned that these two teams always play close games. The spread should never be more than like 3 or 4 points. The underdog in this game has covered a very high percentage of the last several games. And then Baltimore blew the doors off of Pittsburgh by like 17 or 20 points. Um, I think that probably happens again here, sadly. Over the last couple decades, these teams do play very close games historically. Baltimore and Pittsburgh are division rivals. They play each other twice a year, every year anyway. They know each other well. These two coaches have been the coaches of both of these teams for over, I think, 15 years plus now. Um, so these two coaches know each other like the back of their hands. Um, there's a lot of familiarity here. But this season, Baltimore is the better team. They have more talent. They have the better quarterback. They got Derrick Henry in the offseason, who is a absolute load in the backfield for Baltimore. And Baltimore's got some good young receivers, but Lamar Jackson can run the ball better than any other quarterback in the league, really. And I don't see Pittsburgh keeping up. Pittsburgh's lost 4 straight games. Russell Wilson's looked very average in the last several games for Pittsburgh. George Pickens has fallen off a little bit toward the end of the season. Pittsburgh doesn't have the edge that they had in the middle of the year. And they've played a tough schedule to finish the year, so I don't want to take all the credit away from them, but they've limped into the playoffs as the 6th seed. So this game is in Baltimore. Baltimore has a high amount of pressure on them this season to at least get to the AFC Championship game, I would think. They have the talent. They have presumably the MVP this year in Lamar. And if they happen to lose this game, it would be an incredible disappointment for Baltimore. In this game, the line, Baltimore is favored by 9.5, and the over/under is 43.5. So, despite a somewhat low total, Vegas sees Baltimore winning this by a fair margin, something in the neighborhood of like 28-17, something like that. So, we'll see how it goes, but I do like Baltimore in that one. Both those games are tomorrow. Sunday matchups are pretty good games Sunday. The first game of the day at 1 p.m. is the Broncos at the Bills, the 7 seed versus the 2 seed in the AFC. Buffalo favored by 9.5 as well. The over-under on that one's 47.5. Buffalo is very similar to Baltimore this season. Buffalo has a lot of pressure on them to make a deep playoff run. This was supposed to be potentially a rebuilding year for them. They shipped off pretty much all their wide receivers in this offseason. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, both are gone. And they brought in a bunch of young, unproven guys, rookies. Keon Coleman was a draft pick. Shakir was the number 3 option last year, and now he's like the number 1. The Bills did go out and trade for Amari Cooper right at the trade deadline from the Browns. So he is definitely talented, and I think he's had enough time now to kind of mesh and gel with the team that he should be making an impact. But Buffalo's got some excellent running backs, and Josh Allen is a unicorn at quarterback. I mean, the guy's like 6'5" and 250 pounds plus probably. He's a load. I mean, that guy can run just as good as any running back in the league, and he takes contact like any running back in the league. He doesn't run like a quarterback does. So that's a weapon that no other team in the league has. And Buffalo has been good enough to make Super Bowls in the last several years. And the only reason they haven't is Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So Buffalo and their fan base is absolutely looking to make a deep run in the playoffs this year. Denver is just standing in their way. Um, I don't think there'll be a huge hurdle. I don't think this is going to be that close of a game. Denver's got a rookie quarterback who, when drafted, no one really thought Bo Nix was going to do anything special this year. I think Denver's win total was set at like 5 for the season, and Denver ends up going, I don't know, what are they, 10-7, I think. Yeah, 10-7. So they doubled their initial season win total, which is impressive, very impressive. But Bo Nix is a rookie. He's never played in the NFL playoffs, and Denver's offense is not littered with like Pro Bowlers. I mean, you've got Cortland Sutton at receiver, but their running back committee is meh. Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Audric Estime. None of them really put the fear of God in you. And you've got a couple young wideouts in Denver, but like nobody who's super proven in high pressure situations. Like this team is not proven together yet. So this will be a new experience for these guys as teammates in Denver. And I think it's going to be a rude awakening because Buffalo has been in this spot a couple times in the last few years, and they know what's coming. They know what to expect. I like Buffalo. Second game Sunday is the Packers at the Eagles, another 7-2 matchup. This one is going to be a good game, though. I think, unlike the previous 7-2 matchup we just talked about, I think the Packers, the only reason they fell to the 7 seed is the fact that they play in the NFC North with the Lions and the Vikings, who are two of the best teams in the league this year. So there's 4 losses right off the crack of the bat playing the Lions and the Vikings. So outside of those teams, Green Bay goes, let's see, that's 4. So they go to 11-2 this year, against everybody else. So their only 2 losses outside of the Vikings and the Lions are the Eagles in the first game of the season, which was a pretty close game, and Jordan Love actually got hurt in that game. So, I guess you're looking back a long way to see the result there. So these teams are both very different than they were back in, September. But also, you're going to have, hopefully, both starting quarterbacks for the entirety of the game. So that should be a little bit different than how it went the first time. And the only other loss there is the Bears, which was a total fluke in Week 18. So the Packers are a good team. They've got a lot of weapons. Josh Jacobs has been an absolute animal at running back this year for them. He's scored, especially in the second half of the year, Josh Jacobs is scoring like at least a touchdown a week. So, when you've got a dangerous running back, teams have to respect the run. They have to keep guys in the box, and that allows your receivers, if they're talented enough, to get into open space. And if those receivers can create space, Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs, and unfortunately Christian Watson is out with a torn ACL, I believe, that he suffered against the Bears in the final week of the season. But Dontavian Wicks is another young guy that the Packers have that I think can step into that slot receiver role. So the Packers have weapons. They're a good team. I think they're going to give the Eagles all they can handle. The Eagles are a great football team too. I don't want to take anything away from them. Jalen Hurts is going to come back, and that's going to be a good thing, obviously, for the Eagles, despite Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee playing pretty well while Hurts was out. But when the Eagles are at full strength with these guys coming off of a week of rest that they just took in Week 18 against the Giants, so they kind of had a mini ipso facto, manufactured bye week, Saquon's going to be, ready to go. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard, I believe, is playing. I don't think he's injured. So Philadelphia's got weapons, and their defense is unbelievable this year. Philadelphia hit on a lot of their draft picks this season, and they are huge contributors for the Eagles. So I think that's probably what separates these two teams in this game is Philly's defense. Green Bay's defense is middle of the pack. Philly's is elite. So I think unless those young guys struggle to adapt to playoff football, I think the Eagles will take this one. Philly is favored by 5. I don't know if the Eagles cover in this one. I think this is a 3 or 4 point game. So I guess give me Green Bay to cover, but I do think the Eagles will win. Final game of Sunday is the Washington Commanders at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a good matchup for both of these teams. They played each other in the first week of the season, and Tampa Bay won, I believe, 38-17, so it was not close. But that was Jaden Daniels' first game of his NFL career, the Washington Commanders quarterback. So I think there was a lot of, I'm sure there was a lot of nerves. I'm sure there was a lot of learning still to be done on his part. And now you've seen the Commanders win 12 games. You've seen Tampa lose a few guys to injury since week 1. I think this game will be a lot closer than it was in week 1. Tampa Bay is favored by 3 points in this game, and the over-under is 50.5, which is somewhat high, but both of these teams have pretty electric offenses. Tampa, especially this season, has been known to put up a lot of points, and Washington with Jaden Daniels, I think, can keep up. So Washington's defense has gone from bottom of the barrel bad at the beginning of the year to middle of the pack meh, which when you've got an elite offense like Washington does with Daniels and Terry McLaurin and Brian Robinson at running back and Zach Ertz, you can afford to not have the best defense if you can put up points, which Washington has proven that they can. Tampa, Baker Mayfield had a career year this year. Excellent year for Baker. A few guys have emerged for Tampa Bay that we did not think would be as good as they are this quickly. I'm talking mainly about Bucky Irving in the backfield, who took quite a bit of playing time from Rachaad White, who still is playing. So they've got a couple guys in the backfield that are very good running backs. And unfortunately, Chris Godwin went down in the middle of the season, early to middle of the season. So they haven't seen Godwin for several weeks. But Mike Evans is healthy, who's their number 1 receiver. And Jalen McMillan has filled in pretty well in that number 2 spot as a rookie. Out of Washington, that guy has really done a good job of learning the playbook and being a reliable target for Baker. And I believe Payne Durham is the tight end out of Purdue. So Payne's done a good job of earning Baker's trust there in Tampa as well. So a couple decent storylines in this game. I think Tampa Bay is going to win this one. I think Tampa's a pretty dangerous team in the playoffs. I think they're a little bit streaky. They've lost a couple games that they shouldn't have, but they also were one of the only teams to beat the Lions and the Eagles this year. So, I mean, that right there proves that they can beat any team in the NFL if you can beat both the Lions and the Eagles. So, watch out for Tampa. I think they could make some noise. They are the 3 seed in the NFC. So they conceivably could see home field advantage if the Eagles lose, and I believe if the Eagles lose, then the Lions would play the Packers, and then the Bucks would, assuming they win, would play the winner of the Rams and the Vikings at home again. So who knows? Who knows in the NFL playoffs? And then the last game of the wild card weekend is on Monday night. Prime time is Minnesota at Los Angeles. This game has been moved to Glendale, Arizona as a result of the wildfires going on in LA. Obviously, feel terrible for the innocent folks out in LA dealing with this stuff. I hate that you have an incompetent government who doesn't care about you. They just care about themselves and lining their own pockets and, you know, trying to get into the goodwill of the large companies that are out there and fanning the flames, excuse the pun, of storylines and narratives. And unfortunately, this is what you see when you find an ill-prepared government with being met by a serious event. So hate that for the innocent people that did nothing to deserve that in LA. But anyway, back to football. The game has been moved to Glendale, Arizona, and I think it'll be a decent turnout for this game. Arizona is a place that a lot of snowbirds like to be in the winter, and trust me, you've got plenty of snow in Minnesota. So I actually think this kind of stinks for LA as far as home field advantage goes. I think Minnesota is actually going to travel pretty well to this game, and have a decent number of fans there, as far as creating a home field advantage. Minnesota's the better team here. These two teams did play earlier this year, and LA won. I've mentioned this outcome a couple times already on this podcast, but LA won in pretty controversial fashion. It was a very close game toward the end, and LA grabbed Sam Darnold's face mask in the end zone, and it was not called a penalty, which it should have been. And so the Vikings turned the ball over, and the Rams ended up winning the game. I do think Minnesota remembers that game, and I do think that they will be reminded of that game if they don't this week. And Minnesota's only favored by 3. I see Minnesota covering this. I see this as a 10 to 14 point game. Minnesota's just been a better team all season, and I think Brian Flores who is Minnesota's defensive coordinator, is going to draw up a pretty good game plan for the Vikings. So, yeah, that's your wild card weekend preview. The teams with the byes obviously are the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC with the 1 seed, and the Detroit Lions in the NFC with the 1 seed. So, it is reseeded. The bracket is reseeded after this week, so that the 1 seeds play the worst remaining team. So we won't necessarily know who is playing who until these games are completed at the conclusion of Monday's games. So lot to be decided this weekend. Enjoy the football. Should be some good games to watch. Now, the only other thing I want to start touching on, and obviously I've mentioned I'm going to cover this, and forgive me if you don't give a rip about golf, but I do, so I'm going to talk about it. The Sony Open is going on in Hawaii. This is 2 straight tournaments that have been in Hawaii now for the PGA Tour. Tough place to play golf, LOL. But the field is pretty well put together through 2 rounds out there. You got a couple guys at the top of the leaderboard who are, with all due respect, not your typical names you see at the top of the leaderboard, in Patrick Fishburne and Denny McCarthy. Both of them are at 10 under right now. And then you've got a smattering of guys who, you probably recognize some names, but, aren't perennial, top 10 golfers. Zach Johnson is in contention here. Sepp Straka, Tom Kim, Brian Harmon, Adam Schenk, Boilermaker, Gary Woodland, Sahith Thagala. So some of those names are up in the top 20 and within striking distance. They're, I believe, okay, yeah, there was a cut at I believe 3 under. It looks like, but I'm not certain because ESPN doesn't have those guys cut off. So I'll have to touch on maybe who missed the cut, some big names that missed the cut in my next episode. But I always enjoy golf season getting up and going again. I think I touched on this a little bit in my last episode, but golf is obviously not for everybody. There's a lot of people who do not play golf, do not watch golf, that think that's probably one of the most boring things you could possibly do is watch golf. And I understand the sentiment, but if you play it and you know how difficult of a game it is, then it gives you an insane appreciation for what these guys are able to do with a golf ball. And that's what I find entertaining about it. And the cool thing about golf, I've said this in casual conversation before on the golf course, and I want to bring this up to people who may not have considered this before. Golf is one of the only, if not the only, sport/game where casuals and amateurs, yours truly included, can any given shot can make a shot that a pro would make. And what I mean by that is, let's say I'm 150 yards out on a par 4 and I pull a 9-iron and I stick it to 2 feet. Like, that's a really cool feeling, and that's something that a professional golfer would do. And potentially if you put 2 golf balls out at 150 yards, it's not super likely, but the possibility exists that I hit a better shot than the professional in that one instance. And that's cool, right? I think that is a really neat aspect of this game. And why I bring that up, I mean, I compare that to a basketball or even football or something where that isn't reality. That could never be reality, right? You watch LeBron James drive down the lane and throw it down over some other 6'8" professional player. I'm never going to do that. That's not possible. Literally not possible. You watch Patrick Mahomes take a snap, roll out to his right, and throw across his body 45 yards down the field to Travis Kelce. That's not possible for me. No matter how many times I try to do it, I can't do that. So that's what's really cool about golf is, even your 62-year-old uncle who is 300 pounds and, rides around in a golf cart, in any given shot, he can do something that Tiger Woods could do, which I think that's badass. It's not now what separates professional golfers from amateurs is not that one shot. It's doing that consistently over the course of hundreds of thousands of shots that your overweight uncle can't do more than once every 40,000 shots. But hell, a hole-in-one happens for a lot of people. And I mean, there's guys on that play college golf, that play professional golf, that you could probably find one that hasn't had a hole in one before. So, I think that's a cool thing about the sport, and you may not agree with me, but that's what I find neat. So, um, but I want to talk a little bit more about the TGL league that I touched on Tuesday night, and I think that league. I did put out a poll on Twitter just to try to get some people's opinion on the league, and people's takes were um, very mixed bag of results. Um, the options were, yeah, I think it takes off, maybe, but probably not, and definitely not, and the final option was this Tuesday night was kind of a blowout, so I'm not really sure yet. Um, and the the I only got 26 votes, but hey, that's a decent sample size, and 42% answered, very cool, it will stick. So that's probably 12 to 14 people that no, I'm sorry. That's terrible math by me. That's 11 or 12 people that think that this was a cool thing that um, they'll probably end up tuning in again. Um, and 19% saw it as a blowout, so they're reserving judgment. And that's probably five people. So I think there's still a fair amount up in the air on TGL, but I do think, as I mentioned on Tuesday, it was a really good debut for a new league. It went off without a hitch, with all the technology that plays an integral part in that league. That the fact that there were no hiccups or malfunctions on a live primetime TV event is huge. It's a big deal. So I think Tuesday night will be a great barometer for where this league goes. If you did not catch my last episode, Tuesday night, I believe it's 7 p.m. Yes, you've got LA against Jupiter Lynx, and these are probably the two most intriguing teams that are in TGL, matched up against each other. So, for those of you who do not know who's on those teams, allow me. Jupiter Lynx is Tiger Woods' team, which consists of Tiger, Max Homa, Tom Kim, and Kevin Kisner. And then LA is made up of Colin Morikawa, Sahith Theegala, Justin Rose, and Tommy Fleetwood. So that matchup will be really, really good, and Tiger as an owner will want that to be an entertaining battle. So I think he'll, and this is the cool part about Tiger Woods in the last several years, right? Is back in the early 2000s when he was, winning majors left and right, and was kind of that, ultra competitive, um, towing the line of being a douchebag, um, which I still loved, but that's how people saw him. Um, he's so much different today than he was then, in the way of, like, his competitors are people and friends, and I think he has kind of come around to the fact that, like, um, I still want to win, but, like, these guys, like, my life could be a lot more, um, maybe a lot less enjoyable if I don't, like, enjoy my time with these guys that I'm on the same golf course with every week. And so I think Tiger's become a lot more personable. I think he's become a lot more, um, I don't know, fun, if you will, like laid back, maybe is the right way to describe it. And now that he's got a financial, investment in a product that very much is depending on his personality and draw. I think that he's going to do what he can do to make that interesting. So try to tune in Tuesday night. I'll be back live with you Tuesday night, hopefully live during that event. But that starts at 7 p.m. and I believe it is being televised on ESPN. Let me confirm that for you. But yeah, it's ESPN 7 p.m. Eastern. So try to tune in for that, even if it's just for a few minutes, and check it out. See what all the hoopla's about. We even have the rosters and who's sitting. So you're gonna have Tommy Fleetwood out for LA that evening, and you're gonna have Tom Kim out for Jupiter Lynx that evening. So that'll be a cool match. I'm looking forward to that. I think they've already got all the holes laid out for it. So you can get online on tglgolf.com and check out who's going to play who and how that all is going to shake out. So yeah, pretty neat. That's pretty much all I have to touch on today. As far as what's going on in the next week or so, I am going out to Eugene, Oregon to watch Purdue basketball play at Oregon on January 18th. Looking forward to that trip. College basketball I haven't touched on lately. I guess my very quick and dirty on it is I think the Big Ten is ultra competitive still this season. I do think a few teams have kind of risen to the top of that league, and those teams being Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State, and I'm going to throw Purdue in there. Purdue's looked very dominant in the last 3 games, winning each one by 18 or more. So I think the Big Ten is kind of anybody's up for grabs. I think you've got to win your road games. I mean, let's back up a little bit. You have to win every home game if you want to win the league. You might be able to drop one, but you have to hold serve at home. That's paramount to winning the Big Ten. And then your road games, you have to really split your road games at worst. I think if you can split road games and hold serve at home and be somewhere in the neighborhood of 15-5, 14-6, it gives you a really, really good shot to win the league this year. Like I said, super competitive, and I think you're going to probably see 10 to 12 Big Ten teams in the NCAA tournament. So that's exciting. I do still think Auburn is head and shoulders above everybody else. Janai Broome is an unstoppable force, similar to what Zach Edey has been the last couple of years. I mean, Janai Broome is him. He's probably already wrapping up the Wooden Award right now. So congratulations to Auburn. But again, I touched on it at the top of the show. That's what makes NCAA college basketball great, is that tournament. That tournament that decides the winner and the national champion. Anybody can win on any night. So I do think Auburn is very good, but they got to win 6 straight games. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, I will be in Oregon in a week. So looking forward to that. And we'll see if I'm able to jump on and do an episode from Eugene. Some technology things I need to figure out, and obviously timing and what I'm going to be doing out there. But I've got a buddy out there who may end up jumping on with me as a guest. And we may try to do some kind of campus tour of Eugene or something like that we throw together. So we'll see what happens there. But, in the meantime, If you're listening, please do give me a follow on Twitter at RealGTL, X.com, the Everything app. Everything's happening on X. I'm on Spotify. Gain the Lead on Spotify if you like listening to just the audio. And I am posting video feeds to YouTube. So look me up on YouTube at Gain the Lead. And appreciate you tuning in for as much or as little as you did tonight. And looking forward to chatting about the NFL playoff results into next week. So enjoy the football tonight. We enjoyed the football tonight. Enjoy the football this weekend. As you watch, try to catch some college basketball too. And we will talk during the TGL event on Tuesday. Be safe, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. Talk soon. Adios.